Sandhan, All Gujarat Integrated Classroom.
સેટેલાઇટના માધ્યમથી જોડતી કડી એટલે સંધાન.
Hello young friends, welcome to this live telecast in the subject of CC. I am sure friends you are enjoying your days, winter and days of examinations and days of celebrations. But I am here to talk on a very important topic called order letters and emails. I have got with me Dr. Shruti Kikani. She hails from Khed Brahma College and she has been an associate professor in English and CC. So both of us would talk on the very important topic, that is order letters and emails. Friends, we will have also some time for interactions, so we would welcome your queries. So take care that you prepare your queries right when you are allotted the time for that. Friends, we know that order letters are part of business and they are letters. So simply when you think of a business letter, we must take into account that letters must follow a particular pattern. So instead of going to that pattern and structure and appearance of the letters, I would like to directly go to the point, that is order letters. See friends, there are some of the essentials of the order letters. I say essentials of the order letters simply because they are very specific to this letters only. So like all other letters, they follow the same pattern. It must have good look, it must have good appearance. But what is specific of this order letters? I think my colleague Shruti would talk more about the essentials of the order letters.
Yeah, friends. As you know, letter writing is a very important part of business correspondence. We should know that order letter also contains all the, it requires all the characteristics which are required by any business letter. That means all 7 C's, what we call courtesy, correctness, compactness, clarity. Everything is needed in an order letter. So if you learn how to write good letters, you can become a master of correspondence that way. So let us see what in order letter is required. The most important thing is the clarity. You have to make it clear that all the details which are required for the supplier are mentioned in your letter. That means you have to mention the color, size, item number, code, etc. So you have to refer to the quotation also. You may refer to the quotations so that the supplier gets the idea which particular item he is going to send to you. So that is the most important thing, that you become very clear when you write an order letter.
Friends, there is a slide here. You can see on your screen. What should be the clarity? Because it varies from letter to letter and the type of the letter. But when it is a letter of orders, we must be very precise and we must be very clear regarding these things. For example, regarding prices, regarding specifications. I think this is one of the most important topic we would never should forget, because specifications are very important and every now and then we think of that. If the goods is not as per our specifications or our requirements, then it is likely that we will have to reject. So specifications, for example, like size and colors. So there are so many other specifications also, but for your reference only I have mentioned 2. Then next is the quality and quantity. Quality is in terms of there are number of varieties available, A quality, B quality or mediocre quality, something like that. And quantity is specific numbers. I want 2 dozens, I want 4 items, I want 10 dozens. That is the quantity and quality. We must take care. We must not go in a lump sum way, send the goods like thing. So I will have to make the things clear when I am writing a letter of order, that I want this number of units, and this is my specifications in terms of color and size and everything. Then the next is terms of payment. Friends, very often what happens is we take the things for granted, and in that case what happens is there is always confusion, there are always problems. So to avoid these confusions and problems, we must make the things clear. As such, the buyer, when he buys, he is bound to do some payment as per the norms laid down by the seller. So that must be made very clear outrightly when we are placing our order. So if the buyer is sending some amount along with the letter, then he must specify that thing. The price must follow the catalog prices, so there must not be any variations, there must not be any problems in terms of prices. So one must take care regarding the prices and payment. The next is the time of execution of the orders. Friends, it is very imperative that the goods must reach to the seller from the seller to the buyer right on time. We must specify the specific time that we need the goods or the consignment of our goods by this particular date, and we must mention the mode of transportation and also its cost, who would bear the cost and how. For example, the buyer is buyer needs the goods by road transport, and the seller would say that the cost must be borne 50-50, then it must be very clearly mentioned in all the communication. Friends, these are the basic things I may repeat for you. The clarity in terms of prices, in terms of specifications, in terms of quantity and quality, in terms of mode of payment, in terms of time of execution and of the order, and mode of transportation and its cost. Friends, if both the sides are very much clear regarding these points, then there is no point for any kind of confusion, any kind of delays, any kind of problems after the execution is done. Friends, next topic is regarding replies to the order letters, and my colleague Dr. Shruti Kikani would talk about that.
Yeah, friends, I would also like to make it clear that before you place an order with any supplier, you are quite clear because they have sent you the reply to your inquiry, and in this reply to the inquiry, he has made it clear what is what are their terms and conditions. So when you have some accordance with the
if there are some problems, then you may have earlier reference. For example, if there is a kind of problem regarding the price which you mention in your order letter, but there may be some change in the prices mentioned in the catalog, so there can be a kind of issue which can be sorted out later on, friends. So when you reply the letter of order, first and foremost thing we must take into account is it must be very prompt. It is not that the buyer has sent the order and you may reply him after a week. That doesn't work in today's business. So a quick response to the letter is very important, not only for sake of acknowledgement, but friends, remember, it also creates the goodwill, and goodwill pays in the business. So promptness is inevitable, promptness is the must, and it is a part of your business strategy that I must acknowledge the order. Not only that, I must be very much thankful to my buyer for the patronage. Friends, you can see in the next slide that courtesy also is very important. The buyer is your patron, so because of the buyer, the seller prospers. The seller depends on the buyer, so the courtesy element must be there so as to encourage more and more buyers to come to you and the buyer to continue his patronage with you. So friends, take into account courtesy is very important, and especially in the replies which is sent by the seller. So please see in the slide, you can say courteous reply from the supplier often prompts the buyer to place more and more orders in future. Thus the courtesy often proves to be conducive to the business patronage. Friends, this is the letter of orders, but otherwise also courtesy always pays, maybe in business or maybe in your any field of activity. So courtesy also plays in the important role in the business. Now I may think my colleague would talk about the mode of payment. There are different ways, especially nowadays cash transactions are less preferred, but then again Dr. Shruti would talk something more about the mode of payment.
Yeah, friends, as I told you, in general, the supplier has made it clear that what are the terms and conditions. Then also you have to be clear what will be the mode of payment from your side. It may be either cash on delivery, you may send a check in advance. So all these things should be made clear. If you are sending a check, it should also made clear in your letter that you are sending so and so check with its number and the amount which you are paying. So all the modes of payment should be made clear, and it should be mentioned in your letter. It should be clearly mentioned whether you are paying by credit, and if you are paying by credit, then your credit account number should also be mentioned. You should also mention other details of the check.
Friends, here what she means by credit is, if you are if you want to enjoy the credit facility, it means you are only partly paying, not fully. So remaining part would go to the credit account, that would be credited to your account. You may pay it later on. That is called credit. I think most of us know. Friends, next slide shows you the very important rule of the order letters. The important rule to maintain goodwill and good business patronage is the buyer should follow the seller's desired mode of payment. Friends, I have mentioned some terms. You can say CWO, COD, FOB. I think most of us are very much familiar what they mean. CW is cash with order, as you know. COD is cash on delivery, and FOB is free on board. Friends, it must be very much clear from the both sides regarding the mode of payment. So if the seller wishes cash with delivery, the buyer must do and must follow CWO. If it is on COD, then he may make the payments when he receives the delivery. So this is very important, very imperative, friends, and this only adds to the mutual trust. If the trust is gone, the business is gone, and if business is gone, you have nothing to go with in future. So friends, the payment part plays very important role. We know that we also have to often write the reminders, re-reminders and re-reminders. So, and ultimately it may also lead to the legal tangles. So to avoid that thing, the buyer must follow the norms laid down by the seller in terms of payment. He must make the things so all the things so clear that there should be no confusion in future. In the next slide also, I am talking about the transportation. Very often what happens is, nothing is clear regarding the mode of transportation. The buyer would feel that the consignment would come by train and it may take 4 days. The seller feels that okay, he is in no hurry, so he may send his own way. What happens is confusion and delays. To avoid that thing, it must be very clearly mentioned, and it must be clearly borne in mind by both the buyer and the seller that which way of transportation should be preferred, and they have to specify the things. For example, if they wish the transportation mode to be the railways, then it must be clearly mentioned in the letter. Similarly, the mode of transportation and the cost is very important. So when it comes to the cost of the transportation, generally what happens is it is equally shared, but it is not the rule, it is not the thumb rule. So it must be settled, it must be made very much clear that who will bear the cost of the transportation and to what extent. This is just to avoid any confusion, any problems after the execution is done. So friends, transportation plays very important role. Very often what happens is, for example, the railways provide very good facility, but very often the cancellation of railway accidents cause so many problems in terms of the execution. In that case, alternative transportation mode also should be mentioned, so it saves your time, money and energy. So transportation plays very important role. Nowadays the global village concept is increasingly becoming very popular. In that sense, transportation by sea and air is also very important, and friends, you can see that I have mentioned in the slide. So there are different ways of transportation, but what is important is which mode of transportation is best suited to your needs, number one, and number two, it is regarding the cost, who will bear the cost of transportation and to what extent. Friends, all these things are part of the order letters, and if you follow these norms, if you follow these basics of the letters, I think it may not only increase your business but also business patronage and goodwill. Friends, let us go to the next slide, which talks about the punctuality and the execution. Punctuality in every field is very necessary, friends. If you go to your hall of examination late, then you have to face the problem. If you are punctual in reaching the place right on the time or right before the time, then it helps you a great deal. And my colleague Shruti would talk more on the punctuality and how significance is the punctuality in the execution of the orders.
Yeah, punctuality means you have to be very, very precise about the words you use, about the details you give, and about the time you have to mention, which should be very clear in which what particular period you want your goods. So the date of delivery should be mentioned very clearly. So you have to use a very precise language for that. You cannot say that we want goods in 15 days. You have to specify. You have to mention that we want the goods before 15th of August 2012. So you have to make it clear which particular time you want your goods to reach. So that is what to say about particularity and punctuality, which should be very, very clear so that there are no delays and the supplier knows at what time you require your goods. In seasonal goods it becomes very important, because if the goods does not reach in time, you may lose your business. So that to be very precise in mentioning the time of delivery is very important. I hope
Yes, friends, I have given two examples. What the punctuality means in a business letter. One is the ambiguous writing, which is mentioned in the middle of the slide. See the line, we want, you can see friends in the slide, the ambiguous line is the we want the goods in 15 days. Now friends, you can understand it is written from the side of the buyer. Now there are so many things which are not clear. 15 days, for example, from where you start day 1, it is always a problem. If you say that I have written this letter on this particular date, it means that day number 1 is this. But the seller says I received the letter on this particular date, maybe after a week. So his day number 1 starts after a week. So there is always a problem. That is ambiguous writing. And goods is what? We must specify. And in underwriting also, which should be clear,